You may notice that my presentation is called What the Health, and that is because I love puns, but I also love people being the best versions of themselves. And I really saw growing up that the biggest area that we fell short of this on a regular basis was in our health. And that was one of the things that inspired me to get into healthcare, to become a chiropractor. And so I'm excited to share that with you. But oftentimes we fail to realize, and like Tyler was talking about earlier, it's so easy to jump right into the what of our message. It's so easy to jump right into the content that we forget to give people the context. And the why behind our message is so very much more important than the what. Because I'll be honest with you, if you're just trying to look at somebody who is concerned with nutrition and offer them nutrition, they may not be able to see eye to eye with you, especially if they believe that their knowledge of nutrition is superior to yours, that they've been doing it more years, that they've studied more textbooks, that they went to school and have a degree in it. But if you're able to convince them the why behind the way that you do life, you're going to be able to see so many more people buy into what you're doing. And they're going to buy you, not necessarily Isogenics, but that's powerful because then you become an influencer in their life. You're able to point them in the right directions, which is hugely powerful. So what the health is nothing without why the health, right? So getting started, the reason why health is so important is because we don't have it anymore. When we're looking at the US, how many of you guys are patriots, right? I was talking at the rally about this. If you're a patriot like me, you want the US to be first in everything. Okay. How many of you guys have ever had a kid or yourselves were on a sports team in a competition? Okay. Now, who here loves like coming in dead last? Okay. Who here loves coming in 14th out of 30? Right? Nobody. Everybody wants to come in first, right? And we want that for ourselves with our healthcare. And let me tell you, we pay for us to have the ability to come in first. Everybody understands the incredible cost that's associated with healthcare costs. In fact, it's the number one cause of bankruptcy in our country. So we would think that the outcomes would match up with the expenditure. But when we look, we see that there's something very different happening. The United States currently ranks 37th overall in world health. And to put this into context, 36th, this is done by the World Health Organization, 36th, right ahead of us, is Cuba. Now, I went to chiropractic school with a friend of mine whose family was from Cuba. He was first-generation American. And they came over in boats and rafts and on doors, right? Not realizing that the country that they're leaving, that they're so desperate to get away from, has better health outcomes overall than the one that they're going to. And something is not right with that. That doesn't sit well with me, and it shouldn't sit well with any of us. When we look at it, again, there's this dissonance. Why are we paying so much but seeing so little? We know now, if we look at the research, it's because we're using all the wrong methods to try and get the right results. We only make up about 5% of the world's population, but when you look at the breakdown, we take about 75%, if not more, of all the world's prescription drugs, and 80% of the world's prescription narcotics. Now, I'm calling you from my friend's house in sunny South Carolina, but I don't know where you're at. If you're in Ohio, which is where my practice was, then we're right smack in the middle of an opioid crisis. And we wonder why, because we're using that to try and fix all of our health issues. And that in reality is the equivalent of trying to put out a candle with a fire hose. Now, I'm not here to bash our modern medical system, because I'm telling you right now that if there's ever an emergency, it reminds me of the story. My little sister, when she was growing up, she was a skateboarder. I don't know if any of you guys are real daredevils, but she had zero cares for life, okay? She was pedal to the metal all the way. And what all skateboarders do at some point in time to be legitimate in their careers is they have to build a ramp. And it can't be a ramp that you buy from Walmart or Costco. It has to be homemade. That's part of earning your stripes as a skateboarder. And so she pulled together whatever cardboard and plywood and rocks and sticks that she could fashion into a ramp and placed it at the bottom of the driveway. And then, of course, she's at the top of the driveway coming down full speed ahead. And she hit that ramp and went flying. And let me tell you, no part of her landed on that skateboard. And what happened as a result is she got a big gash in her elbow, okay? And it's bleeding profusely. So what did I do, right? I'm a chiropractor. I told all my friends, I said, quick, pick her up, take her down into the basement. You guys hold her down, okay? And I'm going to stitch her up. I can see the worried looks on people's faces on their webcams. No, I'm a chiropractor, okay? I did not stitch her up in my basement, all right? We took that joker straight to the emergency room. And the reason why I tell you that story is this. There's a time and a place for emergency care, but it has to be just that. It has to be emergency care, okay? Otherwise, we're doing too much for everyday health issues. And the nurses and the doctors and the pharmacists that I serve on a daily basis agree with me when I say that, okay? So there's absolutely a need for a shift to take place, and that shift is in natural health care. But what's one of the biggest barriers to natural health care? The fact that unless there's an emergency, people don't feel like they need health care, right? What are the two things that we base our health off of? We base it off of, we wake up in the morning, we look in the mirror and we look good, right? We feel like we're healthy. If we get up, we bounce out of bed, right? We feel good. Or I would even go a step further, just say, not only, maybe we don't feel good, but we feel not bad, right? Then we feel like we're healthy. We wait until there's a problem to fix it. And that reactive system is getting us in so much trouble. And you want to know why? Because the way our bodies work, we don't have to have an outward symptom for there to be inward dysfunction. Let's look at the top 2 killers in our country. If you're familiar with the stats, you'll know that the top 2 killers in our country are, one, cancer, and the other one is heart disease, right? I think I might have those out of order. I think it's heart disease and then cancer second. When we look at that, we look at people that are like these very famous individuals right here. We got Bob Harper and Robin Roberts. Bob Harper is on The Biggest Loser, the TV show. He's the workout trainer, right? His job is to be in the best shape of his life. His job is to feel great, to look great, and to help other people do the same, right? In his mid-40s, had a heart attack. Boom, no symptoms, nothing. Just woke up one day, had a heart attack. Robin Roberts, of course, very publicly dealt with her battle with cancer. And again, her job was to look good and feel great so that she could communicate the news to everyone in America. Folks, if we're waiting for the symptoms to show up, oftentimes we can wait too long. And I know many of us here may have been personally affected by somebody, a friend or a family member who may have suffered from one of these conditions. And this is the express reason why, if somebody says, hey, listen, I don't need to take care of my health because I feel great, I am healthy. First thing I say is, that's amazing. What are we doing to keep you that way? Because if we wait until it's broken, it's way harder to fix than if we maintain it along the way. Not only to mention, I'm going to go back a couple slides, it's far less expensive to do that, okay? When you're looking at healthcare and you're looking at natural healthcare, of course, we all know the answers to this. What's more expensive? Pharmaceutical, pills, drugs, and surgeries, or natural alternatives? And we know from the stats that healthcare spending, right, is incredibly expensive because we're taking all those pharmaceuticals. It's growing faster than the national economy over the next decade, right? And the here and now, this year, $3.35 trillion, which averages out to $10,000 for every man, woman, and child as an individual by themselves. And that's an average, which means some people are paying more than that for their health. That's a lot of Starbucks lattes, friends. Okay, and I know no matter how much I love isogenics, I love coffee. And actually, speaking of which, I think on my order this month, I got the isogenics coffee, so I'm pumped to try that out, right? But coffee's awesome. I'll tell you what's more awesome is your health. And so a lot of these individuals, these are the stats you need to be using to combat with people that say cost is their concern. How many of you guys, by show of hands, right? That's the most common thing you run into. I can't afford it. Oh man, I wish that I had room in my budget for it. I'm telling you what, the message we need to be communicating to them very lovingly, very encouragingly, is that they can't not afford this. It's more expensive for them not to prioritize their health. It's more expensive for them to push this off, to not care about their bodies, to not fuel themselves properly. And the people we see this doing the most are, of course, our moms. And I would say that those are probably the individuals that need it the most, right? When we look at those moms, oftentimes what we see is that they fall prey to what we like to call the oxygen mask rule. I talk about this all the time in my office. How many of you guys have ever flown on a plane, right? And if you've flown on a plane, we know our favorite part of the flight is always when the stewardess gets up and she's walking us through all those instructions, right? Fasten your seatbelts this way. Okay, if the plane goes down, your cushion, your flotation device is under the seat. And if the cabin loses air pressure, those oxygen masks are going to fall from the ceiling. And you're going to put that on the person next to you first and then on yourself, right? No, we all know better than that. And if you said yes, then this is your chance to snap back in, okay? We know we have to put it on ourselves first and then the person next to us. And the reason why is because you have roughly 3 to 5 seconds if the cabin starts to lose air pressure before you start to lose consciousness. But what we know is that if we don't get that mask on the person next to us perfectly in a very short amount of time, we're going to start to lose consciousness. And at that point, if we didn't get their mask on perfectly, are we able to help them? No. But are we able to help ourselves so that we can help them? No. And that's why our message right now, today, needs to be to our moms, to our dads, to our emergency medical service providers, to our public servants, to our people working in a desk job. They all want to be the best version of themselves for their team. They want to perform well for their team. They want to be the best versions of themselves for their families and for their friends. But without prioritizing themselves, without getting selfish in the area of their health, they can do none of those things. Because they're just going to give and give and give, and they're going to have so much output, they're not going to have any input, and when they get home at the end of that workday, they're not going to have anything to give to their family and their friends, the people most important to them in their lives. That's the priority, and again, that's the why, okay? Now let's talk about the what. What is health? If we know why it's important now, and we know that it's not just looking good and feeling good, then what is it? Well, the World Health Organization, pretty reputable organization, nobody's bad-mouthing them, right, or disagreeing with their definitions. But they say not only is it a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, but like we talked about earlier, it's not just the absence of disease and infirmity. So if you get that person that needs the published research, right, we all know that person that wants the double-blind, randomized, controlled trial study for how everything works in life, and they don't trust it unless they see it. This is the definition that you want to give to them. Right? That person that says, listen, I feel great. I look great. I'm 26 years old. I'm just fine. I'm healthy. Okay. This is the definition that they need to see, because it goes so much more than just the absence of anything. It needs to be somebody continually pushing for and trying to maintain what they do have. Now, the only thing better than fixing broken health is never having to experience it in the first place. I'm going to tell you a story about this. 2 stories, really. Okay. Like they said earlier, I'm the second oldest of 11 kids. I'll let that sink in for a second. That is a crap ton of kids. It was growing up in like the Zittle Zoo, and was my house growing up. And it's been funny because I've been home recently, so I've gotten to see all of them again. And let me tell you, it doesn't get any quieter as all of them get older and develop more personality. But what I've seen is I've seen as my parents started out in a very medical mindset, and they've shifted dramatically to a more natural mindset as we've gotten older. And so what that looks like is I've seen what it looks like for my older siblings, some of them who struggle with severe health issues, to be sick as kids and to grow up to be sick teenagers and then to become sick adults and to have to fix their health as a broken adult. But as my parents got more and more aware of what health looked like, how to obtain it, how to keep it, how to maintain it, I've seen what it looks like for some of my younger siblings to grow up healthy as healthy kids, become healthy teenagers, continue to maintain health, grow up to be healthy adults. And there's no substitute between the two in terms of time, money, heartache, emotional stress, anxiety, right? It's so much easier to maintain something than it is to fix it. Imagine if there was a way, right? This is what I'm communicating to parents. This is why kids need to be on isogenics, okay? We talked about the moms and the dads. Now we're going to talk about the kids. Imagine if you had a seed. You planted that seed in the ground. And you knew that that seed over its lifetime, as it started to become a plant, was going to be exposed to toxins, pesticides, right? All of these different things. Maybe somebody spilled soda on the ground by it, right? Toxins. You knew it was going to be subjected to traumas, right? The wind, maybe rocks got blown on it. Maybe somebody stepped on it, right? It was going to have traumas. And you knew these things were going to happen. But this plant grows up, and you do your best as it grows up, and it gets beat down time and time again. As it gets pelted with those rocks and stepped on, you try and tie it up with sticks to keep it straight. You try and fix it. As it gets exposed to those toxins, you keep pouring in nutrients and fixing the soil and repotting it to help it try and get the nutrients that it needs. And all of that time and all of that effort trying to fix that as it grows bigger and bigger and bigger. But what if there was a way? What if there was a way that we could take that seed and we knew what it was going to experience before it ever did, and we could fortify that seed so that from the time it was little, before it even became a plant, it was able to grow up and withstand those traumas? It was able to grow up and have a healthy defense system all ready to go against those toxins so that when it encountered that, it might bend a little bit, but it'll never break. This is what it's like to prioritize health in kids, not to wait until they're adults and they're having all those aches, pains, and symptoms, but to make sure that the healthy kids are growing up to be healthy adults. So we don't have sick kids growing up to be sick adults. And I'm so passionate about seeing kids get healthy for this reason, because I believe that kids, of course, are the next generation of our country. And as we're going right now, we can't expect our country to get healthier on its own. We have to set that mindset in the mindset of our kids and help them grow up to be healthier. And what better way than to be educating them from childhood how to eat right, to be giving them proper nutritional advice, and to be getting them adjusted and checked and exercise and all of these different things that we know are valuable for ourselves, but we may not pass down to our kids. All right, I'm hopping off the soapbox there. Now, where does nutrition fit, okay? Where does nutrition fit? This is huge for isogenics. How many of you guys have a car? Probably many of us, if not all of us. And I don't know about you, but my car breaks down from time to time. I feel like a car is oftentimes like our health, okay? We take advantage of it until the moment we don't have it anymore, right? I always take advantage that when I turn the key in my car, it's always going to start until it doesn't. And then I know I'm in big trouble, and I should have checked that engine light that was on for like 3 months. Anyways, repressed memories. But what we know is that when I take that car in to get it fixed, and they tell me, hey, we got to give the car an oil change, I know that they're not going to take that oil and they're not going to pour it all over the hood of the car. Because while that affects the surface of the car, it does nothing for the engine. And so often that's what we do with our health, right? When we do these fad diets, when we do these little, lose 20 pounds overnight things, what we're trying to do is we're trying to affect the surface. But what it doesn't do is affect the engine. And that's what's most important. And this is where isogenics is huge. Isogenics brought a group of people together, the most brilliant people in all of these different areas, to literally engineer something so specifically valuable for our nutritional system, for our digestive system, that it goes right to the engine and works on it. Now, I don't know about you, but I really, really feel like what's more effective than fixing the outside, fixing the cosmetics, is fixing the reason why those blemishes are there in the first place. And this is why I believe, again, we need to be communicating with people not from what they see on the outside. For me, when I started isogenics, I didn't need on the outside to lose weight. I looked fine. In fact, even after I had my transformation, and for those of you who don't know my story, I started isogenics just because I wanted to eat better. I wanted to feel better, right? And I knew that my nutrition was important. And Tyler did a great job of educating me on what isogenics provided. And he was extremely smart about it. And I couldn't help but take part in it. In the first 30 days on isogenics, I lost 22 pounds. And I didn't need to lose any weight, okay? But I knew that what I was fueling myself with was going to help me have better output. And that's what's important here. Now, the way that the body works, it's all interconnected. It's all networked together through the nervous system. And as a chiropractor, a lot of times people think of chiropractors as the contractors of the body, right? The twist, pop, and crackers. But I'm here to tell you, you'll find that in a box of Rice Krispies. You won't find that in my office. What we do is we focus on the nervous system. And that's because the nervous system controls and coordinates everything in the body. Now, the digestive system is a huge part of that. In fact, there's science and research that shows that the digestive system is a part of the nervous system. How many of you guys have felt heartache, but you feel it in your stomach, right? How many of you guys have felt anxiety, sadness, nervousness, anxiety, all the things that we think we feel here, but you feel them here? Because the stomach is a vital part of your nervous system and your body's ability to think and experience. It's a lot like the game of telephone. How many of you guys ever played telephone, right? You might, I'm trying to remember the example. I came up with something off the top of my head when I was there at the rally. I think I said something like, right, we start over here on this end with this little blonde girl in the ponytail, right? And she's telling her friend who's cheesing real big, right? Maybe she's saying something to him like, the promise is hopeful, right? But by the time it gets down to the girl with the curly hair on the opposite end, it says like, your parents are homeless, right? So it's funny because that message can change so many different ways along the way. And the reason why is because somewhere on each stop, there's a disconnect. There's a miscommunication. Our body's the same way. When we look at this graph right here, we see how all those nerves are connected together. They all start at the brain. And from the brain, it goes down that spinal cord. Sorry, I'm like blocking my camera because I'm trying to point at the screen here. It goes down the spinal cord, right? I don't know if you guys can you see my pointer? Okay, it goes down the spinal cord, through the spinal cord, out through those nerves to every cell, tissue, and organ in the body. And that's how life is controlled. It's how it's coordinated. There's another reason why drugs just cover up symptoms. They don't help us fix the problem because drugs are outside in. And healing comes from inside out, okay? It's backwards. But when we're looking here, we see the stomach, right? And you see this big bundle of nerves right there called the celiac ganglion, okay? I'm going to nerd out on you for a second. The celiac ganglion right there, so vitally important to our body's nervous system, such a huge feedback mechanism for our brain. It's helping our body hormonally. It's helping our body respond. And this is why when we fuel ourselves improperly, the rest of our body takes a hit. It's not just your stomach. It's not just your fat cells, okay? All those people that think you eat wrong and gaining weight and getting fat is the only, is the only problem from that. How many of us, when we weren't at the level nutritionally that we wanted to be, felt tired all the time? We felt like we're operating with our energy at 30% instead of 100%. In fact, we felt like we could sleep a whole night and wake up and we're waking up at 50%. We get through our morning activities and we're heading to work and we're already at 30% for the rest of our day. And that's because it wears down everything else in the body as a result. This is why isogenics is important, because isogenics, when you ingest that, what it's doing is it's sending those nutrients out exactly where they need to go. It's targeting those areas of the body that need to have that message and that signal sent, and the body's going to respond accordingly, okay? This is the science behind it, and it's important to know the science. I personally do not like to communicate a lot of science because science doesn't connect a whole lot with people. People want to connect with their heart, not with their head, okay? But it's important for us to know the background behind that. It's important for you, especially when you're going to these conferences, when you're going and doing these calls on Monday nights, be asking questions about, hey, how does this physically affect the body? Or what can we learn from this from a scientific perspective? Because the more you know, you don't have to communicate it that way, but you can be empowered with confidence that your message is worth communicating and that it's real and it's absolutely true. And I'm here to tell you, I'm here to corroborate that for you. And that's not just because of the amount of people that have seen great results. That's because literally, physically, you could believe in it or not, right? You can believe the sky is blue, or you can believe it's green, it's still blue, right? You can believe isogenics works, or you can just know it works because it's scientifically backed. It's research-based, okay? And that's very, very important. And I say all these things to say in closing, again, just to wrap up, guys, the most important thing about all this is really the fact that oftentimes we put ourselves last. Oftentimes we put our health off until we've lost it. But what we need to be telling people is, number one, prioritize themselves by prioritizing their health. Our health is our greatest asset. You want to gamble on that, wait till you lose it. You can't do anything. But if you ignore your health, it will go away. And so it's something that you need to be consistently prioritizing. And there's no more money well spent than investing in your health, because it's going to be an investment in your quality of life. And that's what people care about. When people come to me in my office and they're receiving chiropractic care, they're not receiving that care because that care is going to make them feel better, as much as they're receiving that care because that care is going to make them heal better. And when they heal better, then they're going to have an improved quality of life. And that's what people care about. But in order to do that, they can't go in halfway. Tyler probably remembers this. I tell every single person that comes in my office, and I would recommend you telling the people that you communicate with as well. Give them an out. Give them a way to say no, right? If someone came to me and they said, listen, this isogenics thing, it sounds amazing. I really want to try it. I would say, no, you're not ready. I don't want you to try it. You don't need to try it. There's nothing about you that needs to try it. You've heard literally everything that I've said to you right now. And if your end result is, yeah, I'll give that a try, then you're not ready. Because what we don't need is people stepping one foot in and one foot out. And then what happens is, as they do that and they waffle back and forth, guess what's the first thing that comes to mind as soon as it becomes inconvenient? As soon as it doesn't give them the immediate results, the money, the time, the effort, and they put themselves right out of the equation. And then that's not the dangerous part, right? It's not right for everybody. But that's not the dangerous part. The dangerous part is when they then go to all their friends and they start telling them, isogenics didn't work for me, when they never gave it a shot in the first place, when they never gave their bodies a chance to heal in the first place. That's where the danger is. So that individual that's 1 foot in, 1 foot out, on the fence, not ready, or is 50% ready, I say you wait till you're 100% ready. And when you're 100% ready to give your time and your effort, then I'm 100% going to hook you up with all the resources that you need to achieve your health goals. In order to achieve a breakthrough, 2 things have to happen. Number 1, you have to be willing to do whatever it takes to make the breakthrough. But number 2, and even more importantly, you have to believe that it's possible. Guys, the people that you're serving each and every day need you. But more importantly, they need you to help them believe in themselves. That the weight they've been trying to lose for 20 years, they can lose. That the fact that they've been operating on empty for 10 years, they can have full energy restoration again. That the way they haven't been able to exercise the way that they want, they haven't had the quality of life that they've wanted. It's possible for them. It's absolutely possible. And all the docs that have told them it will never happen, that they'll always be this way, they'll always feel these aches, pains, and symptoms. I see story day after day after day of those people coming off these lifetime medications, of people who've been told they'd never walk again taking their first steps. Our body is able to heal in ways we can't even imagine or understand. And that's the magic of the human body and the way that we were designed and fashioned and formed. But when it comes to investing in our health, we're worth it, and the results will be determined by their investment, okay? As business builders, my encouragement to you is don't do the work for them. They've got to be ready to put in the work for themselves, okay? Because if you do the work for them and they don't get the results they want, guess who gets the blame? You do. And it's not your fault. If they're not putting in the effort, if they're not following the recommendations, it's not your fault if they don't see the change. So clearly communicate to them, build the value, because in the absence of value, cost is the only consideration. But if you build the value properly through the why, then you're able to clearly and concisely communicate the what, and you're also able to let them know that they can have a breakthrough. I guarantee that you're going to see some great change in people, and just keep loving on them, keep having those conversations, and I know some good things are going to happen for you. So